You know how you spend your hard-earned money on a phone and somehow end up bored? The same plastic slab, the same launcher, same camera, same everything. But I was honestly curious about the Nothing Phone 4a because Nothing has always done things differently. So is this actually the most interesting mid-range phone that you can buy right now? Well, watch first and buy smart. Now, while the phone weighs about 204 grams, it is quite large. The weight distribution actually feels balanced in the hand. So it doesn't feel like you're holding a brick. Now, Nothing went with a matte finish on the frame, which I love, and this also means there's no nasty fingerprints or smudges building on the sides. Then the button placement also got an upgrade where the power button and the volume buttons are now on the right hand side, which is exactly where most Android users expect them to be. So switching from another Android phone to this phone feels immediately familiar. And this also fixed an issue from the Nothing Phone 3a, which I had and a lot of other people had, because remember how the essential key was positioned, and because of that there were times where I accidentally press it all the time, which was quite annoying. So I'm glad that now the essential key has its own unique area, or on the left, quite alone, but better than the previous generation. Now, I know that this sounds like a very small detail, but when you use the phone every single day, it changes how intentional and the overall experience feels. But if there's one little nitpick that I have is the in-display fingerprint sensor. It sits a little too low, and that means that sometimes you have to stretch your thumb down to reach it. Now, it works totally fine, but it's not the most ergonomic placement. Okay, so I went with the new pink this time around because as much as I always loved a white color smartphone, this was nice and subtle enough that it's not screaming for attention. Now, the phone also has an IP64 dust and water resistance with up to submersion of up to 25 centimeter of water for up to 20 minutes. So if you accidentally drop this phone in a swimming pool, if you have a swimming pool at home, good for you, but if it's a condo, you know I know. Or if your girlfriend is pissed at you and throws this into a puddle of water, it can take it. Okay, now let's talk about the Nothing thing, you know, the Glyph interface, or this time around it's called Glyph Bar. So instead of the older segmented glyph lighting from the previous phone, this version used a rectangular bar at the side of the phone made up of 63 mini LEDs, which is divided into 6 individual controllable zones. Now, this new system is up to 40% brighter than the previous Glyph lights, and it reaches about 3500 nits. Then Nothing also says that this design prevents any light leakage, which was an issue for the previous regular Nothing phones, or the flagship Nothing phones. So brightness stays consistent regardless of the angle. Now, personally, if I really had to choose between the Glyph interface and this particular Glyph Bar, I still kind of prefer the visual look that the older Glyph system was on the previous Nothing phones. So yeah, those definitely looks a bit more cooler to me. Now, although I do admit that I hardly use this, but what I do really like about this new Glyph Bar is things like showing live updates from apps like Google Maps and Google Calendar. You can also track the navigation progress without flipping the phone over, and it can also work as a visual timer and even a volume indicator. But among all, there's one feature that I really love, which is the recording indicator. So if you start a recording, it will show a red color light over here, and if you stop the recording, it will totally stop as well. So that was something which I really appreciated. Again, it's a small detail, but something that once you start using it, you will kind of appreciate this. Then you also get the flip to Glyph, which if you place the phone face down, it also activates the Glyph notification. Plus, it also generates ringtones and notification patterns over here that syncs with the light. And there's even the NFC indicator and a bedtime schedule to turn this particular lights off, which honestly, thank you Nothing, because you don't need some LED disco lights when you're about to sleep or at 2 a.m. So the Glyph interface, or for this case, the Glyph Bar, I would still say that it is a little bit of a gimmick, but this time around is a fun gimmick. Because with features like this, it's slowly becoming something that is actually useful, and that is what makes Nothing phones feel totally different from everything else sitting at this particular price range. Now, on the front, you're getting a 6.78-inch flexible AMOLED panel. Now, in case you do not know, the reason why it is known as a flexible panel is because they're trying to make the whole entire phone, or the bezels, to be symmetrical with the display. Now, it is protected by Corning Gorilla Glass 7i. The resolution is 1224 by 2720 with a PPI value of 4040 PPI. So everything does look very sharp and nice. Now you also get 10-bit color support, so you're looking at an above average screen for a mid-range phone, which is great. But the refresh rate is not as dynamic as the flagship because this goes from 30 Hz up to 120 Hz instead of going down all the way to 1 Hz. But still, the scrolling feels smooth whenever you need it, and the battery isn't wasted when you don't need to use the phone. Then the touch sampling rate is kept at 480 Hz but jumps to a massive 2500 Hz in gaming mode. So that is like the screen went from a light jog to a full sprint the moment you open a game. And the peak brightness can actually hit up to 4500 nits and 1600 nits outdoors. So visibly, this, when it comes to a super bright situation here in the studio or even outdoors, it is very solid. But there was one thing that I was not very happy about is the adaptive brightness or the automatic brightness, because it still can be a little aggressive because sometimes the screen dims too fast and it takes a few seconds to readjust. It's not a deal breaker, but it's something that I noticed when I was using the phone daily. But when it comes to the performance though, there's the Snapdragon 7S Gen 4 processor paired with 12GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. Now for daily use, everything feels very smooth, app launches very quickly, multitasking works without any hiccups. Then the gaming performance was actually better than I expected. I managed to max out the graphics in Call of Duty Mobile, and Genshin Impact also ran comfortably well at medium settings and the settings that you see on the screen. And even during longer gaming session, the phone never got hot. Now I knew that it was not hot when I was in London, but when I came down here in Malaysia or came back home to Malaysia, I didn't expect it to not overheat at all. So yeah, even though this is not a gaming phone per se, but it is great for a casual or even mid-level gaming. Now if you guys are finding this video helpful so far, do give this video a nice big thumbs up to tell the people running the YouTube algorithm, you know those fellas, that this video was good for you. And if you are not subscribed yet, be sure to subscribe because that would be very much appreciated. So thank you, and thank you very much in advance. Now all of this only matters if the software is great, right? Well, if you know Nothing phones, you know that Nothing OS has grown to be so much better over the years. Out of the box, you're getting Nothing OS version 4.1 based on Android 16, and yet again this continues to be one of the most cleanest Android experiences with very little bloatware. Animations are smooth and the whole entire UI keeps Nothing's signature dot matrix design language, so the software and the hardware feels like they were made together, which was of course the case when it comes to Nothing. But a big addition is the new Essential AI suite. But at the center of it is the Essential Space, where you can think of this as your smart hub, where you can store screenshots, photos, voice notes, links, and even call recordings. But instead of dumping everything on a single folder, which what iPhone tends to do, this phone's AI actually analyzes what you saved, so it pulls out the useful details and summarizes the information and organizes everything so it's easier to find this later. Now the engine behind this is called the Essential Memory, which is quietly sorting out and understanding everything. Now inside the Essential Space there's also the Essential Search, where a quick swipe up from the bottom of the screen, you can instantly search across the entire phone. Contacts, messages, notes, photos, app, and even quick answers like the weather or sports scores. So instead of jumping between 5 different apps, you can find one thing where the phone will try to bring that information for you. And the physical Essential key at the side of the phone, press it once, you can instantly capture a screenshot together with a voice note as well. And this also goes straight to the Essential Space mentioned earlier, so capture first and let the AI sort it out later. Now honestly, this is actually a workflow that I can totally get behind with, and I really appreciate it when I was using this phone daily, and I'm sure you will too. Then there's also the on-device image generation, which is powered by the Stable Diffusion 1.5, meaning the phone generates AI images locally without sending everything to the cloud. Now this may sound like a cool party trick, but you know what? This is something that you may not use every day, but a huge credit needs to be given because of the fact that this particular AI works offline. Now when it comes to the software support, you're getting 3 years of Android updates and 6 years of security patches. Now that is of course not the longest, but a solid thing for a mid-range phone. Now all of this means that the software experience here isn't just clean, but it's also trying to make the phone smarter and handles everyday information very well. But the camera setup here is actually quite interesting. So the main camera is a 50 megapixel Samsung GN9 sensor with OIS or optical image stabilization, which at this particular price point is indeed great. Then there's also another almost rare thing for a mid-range phone, which is a 50 megapixel periscope telephoto camera, which gives you up to 3.5 times optical zoom, but a 7 times in-sensor zoom and up to 70 times of digital zoom. Then the ultra-wide camera is an 8 megapixel camera, and the selfie camera is a 32 megapixel lens. Now the quality of the ultra-wide lenses were good, which is at 15 mm. It had great dynamic range with no barrel distortion at the edges during the day, but the weak point was at night, as the quality was not the best, and you need to make sure to keep your hands very stable when it comes to using the ultra-wide lenses at night, or you might get a more blurry image. The main lenses shoot at 24 mm, 28 mm and 36 mm focal lengths. Now during the day, as expected, it looks super nice, and so it was at night too. Then the telephoto lenses also perform great during the day and night too, specifically for the 48 mm or the 2 times zoom. So it was for the 80 mm or the 3.5 times zoom, and while the 7 times in-sensor zoom was nice during the day, but at night the quality is not as good due to the fact that it's using digital zoom, but for the price, I didn't mind it at all. Then the portrait mode had 3 focal lengths, a 24mm, 48mm and an 80mm lens. For humans, it turned out really well, but you can expect a color shift on the 80mm as seen on Mo's face over here. Then as for objects compared to the 24mm and the 80mm, the 48mm did an easier job at focusing the object. So make sure to double check your focus after taking a photo. But for an object in portrait mode, which is a more straightforward kind of object or squared object, you will indeed get good results even at night. And you also get good portrait photos of humans during a night, as long as there's some level of light to the person. Then the results for the selfie photos during the day was great, which was nice to know, both for the regular and the portrait selfie as well, with great age detection on the portrait mode. Now as long as you see some light on your face, similar like how the portrait mode was at night, the nighttime selfie will also be good too. Now just so you know that this particular photo samples that you see was taken without adding any of the preset that Nothing offers, which you can find in the camera app when you hit the arrow button at the bottom. Now I'm actually experimenting with the Fuji LUTs on the Nothing Phone 4a Pro, so do stay tuned for the review of that video coming soon. Okay, switching over to the video performance, the rear main cameras record up to 4K 30 FPS, where the quality was good for the 1 times and even the 3.5 times zoom during the day, but at night you can expect some lens flare, very iPhone-like, but of course comparing the price, it's fine, especially if you're shooting against lampposts. Then the image stabilization was decent during the day, but quite jittery at night. But what's annoying is that even in year 2026, we are still seeing 1080p recording on a phone, and yes, this has it. Not only for the ultra-wide cameras, but also for the selfie camera as well. Which means that during the day, the quality and the stabilization was okay, but not so much when it comes to taking videos using the selfie cameras at night. And here is a vlogging test for me here in the studio, because outside is not the best weather in the world, using the front camera for you to hear how the audio recording is. Alright, 1080p recording in year 2026 is just mind-blowing. Skin tones does not look good. The overall dynamic range of the light, just okay. Yeah, you can go up to 60 FPS, so I guess that's the good thing. But for me, no 4K means no go, man. Anyway, this is an audio test for you to hear how the audio recording is. So test 1, 2, test 1, 2. Test 1, 2. So while the battery capacity is at 5080 milliamps for us here in Malaysia, but for our friends in India, nice one guys, because you are getting 5400 milliamps of battery. So I am super jealous, but very happy for you, my Indian friends. But when it comes to daily usage with this particular version, it easily lasts a full day, where I got a total of 8 hours and 19 minutes of screen on time, with still 20% battery life, which is still really good. Now wired charging is at 50 watts, where Nothing says that you can go from 1% to 100% in about 64 minutes, with 50% reaching roughly about 22 minutes. And based on my test, yeah, it was about there, so that was totally fine by me. And if you're wondering, no, there's no wireless charging over here due to the obvious reasons. You know, I know, and of course because of the price of this particular phone. So after spending time with this particular Nothing Phone 4a, here's where I land. If you're purely chasing specs on a spreadsheet, this phone isn't a phone for you, because there are more powerful mid-range options at this particular price point. But if you're someone who feels like the everyday phone today looks, feels and just behaves exactly the same, this Nothing Phone 4a might actually feel very refreshing. The Glyph Bar gives it personality. Nothing OS is still one of the cleanest Android skins that I've used, and the Periscope zoom camera at this particular price is also quite impressive. So yes, it is a phone that feels more intentional than most. But everything mentioned earlier only makes sense if the price is right, and here it is. Because the Nothing Phone 4a comes with only one variant in Malaysia, which is the 12GB of RAM with 256GB of storage, and it's priced at 1,999 ringgit. But if you pre-order between the 2nd to the 9th of April, you get 100 ringgit off, a 1-year extended warranty with some merch as well, and it's available starting from 1st of April onwards, where I'll leave links down below for you to get it. But if you want to see how this particular phone stacks up against another strong mid-range contender this year, check that video out over here.